Thanks for watching live or listening back to this show from Teachers Talk Radio. You can catch up with all our shows by visiting our YouTube channel or by listening back at ttradio.org. Don't forget to like and subscribe to enjoy more live education conversation from TTR. We hope you enjoy this show.
Outstanding, a world-class vision, a world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused.
Good evening, and welcome to a little pop-up interview with Katharine Birbalsingh. And we're going to talk about her open letter that she published this morning about a meeting that she'd had with the Education Secretary, Bridget Philipson. So looking forward to that chat. Katharine, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you, Tom?
Well, thank you very much for coming on and talking about this.
Yep.
Just before we get started on it, I just want to give a shout out to our sponsors, John Catt Educational. If you haven't heard of them, they're an education publisher. Fantastic books, an amazing array of resources, books and things for you to get hold of at johncattbookshop.com. Check them out. If any of your students are interested in studying in the United States of America after the age of 18, then you've got to visit usastudy.co.uk. They'll help with the application process, all the nuts and bolts of students being able to apply for studying in the US. And of course, finally, Teachers Talk Connect, which is happening on the 1st of March in Manchester with lots and lots of brilliant speakers, and it's completely free for teachers. Now, Katharine, the letter.
Yeah.
Right. So, well, it's not the letter. I want to ask you first, how did the meeting with Bridget Philipson come about?
Because I wrote a first letter on the 17th of January, so a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, questioning the bill that she's putting through, the wellbeing bill. It's going through Parliament right now. And I laid out why I thought she was wrong to do so. And it caused a bit of a stir. And on that same day that I'd sent out the open letter, her people got in touch and invited me in. I presume that they invited me in because you sort of have to, you know, if she gets asked by journalists, did you actually see Katharine Birbalsingh? She needs to be able to say yes, I suppose. To be honest, I was quite surprised she invited me in, but I thought, well, great, you know, I'll go along and I'll explain in person what's wrong with the bill and why she should be listening to school leaders.
Okay. So did the meeting take place at the Department of Education?
Yes.
Okay. So with the meeting itself, did I mean, it's you know, obviously it was a private meeting. I'm guessing it was you and the deputy there, and was it just Bridget Philipson, or was somebody else there with Bridget Philipson?
One of her spads, and then there was a civil servant, I think, and then another woman who was writing things down.
Okay. Did you see that meeting as a private meeting, or did you see that as sort of I don't know, like what we're doing now? Or did you not see the difference between them?
What you're saying, how come I wrote an open letter? Is that what you're asking?
Not necessarily an open letter, because anyone can write an open letter. I think just I was wondering what the distinction might be between a private meeting and then writing about what was said in that meeting afterwards, if that makes sense. And whether I'm just asking whether
when you meet with a politician, you're suggesting, oh, you know, if you meet with Bridget Philipson on her own with all these other people who are there, like acting like her bouncers, you know, you're not allowed to talk about it. That's crazy. I mean, I didn't sign a non-disclosure. I mean, why wouldn't I be able to tell people what was said? She's a politician who's about to destroy lots of good schools and the opportunity that schools that are struggling to be good have to become good with her bill, where she's taken no advice from any school leaders and has just come along with her ideological position about what she thinks works and is refusing. She refused to congratulate Michaela in the Commons when she was asked by one of the other MPs about us and our Progress 8, and would she congratulate us? She refused. This is a couple of months ago. I wrote that first letter, open letter, which I posted on Twitter, asking her why she was doing the various things she was doing in the bill, and would she come and see Michaela? She has refused to come and see Michaela. I've now asked her 3 times and she won't come. In the meeting itself, she did not ask questions about how we get the results we get, why our children are happy. I don't know, any number of different things she could have asked us. Oh, isn't it interesting that you managed to get practically the same number of grade 9s at GCSE as the boys at Eton? That's amazing, seeing as you are in the inner city. Well, tell me, what did you do? Nothing, no curiosity whatsoever. Why should I stay quiet about that? I don't understand why you think that the public shouldn't be aware of what our politicians are doing. Obviously, we know what the politicians think. And
it wasn't suicide. I understand. I just saw some commentary online where people had said, if, I don't know, let's say you went to see the King and had a chat with King Charles, and then after the chat with King Charles, he told everybody what you'd said or something in a negative way, would that be the same thing?
Well, if
I'm genuinely asking. I don't know. I'm genuinely
that's
asking.
the other way around. She's the big guy here. I'm a head teacher. She's a politician. We should be holding our politicians to account. It can't be that you go to see a politician and they say all sorts of things that are outrageous and that we feel that we can't tell people. I mean, this is a free country. We're a democracy. The way in which we hold our politicians to account is by telling other people what they've said. Obviously, the idea that we should just be quiet about what they're saying, I mean, I'm actually quite stunned that you're suggesting that.
I'm not suggesting it. It's just something I've read from several people who've commented, but not necessarily me. Let's move on, right? So in this meeting and the subsequent commentary from it, you talked about, for example, you said that when you mentioned the word academy, that Bridget Philipson's face had twisted in disgust.
Yeah. When she would mention it, every time she said the word academy, she clearly didn't like them. And I was thinking, this is odd because you're telling everyone that you like them. And it's important to note, she didn't talk about loving academies before my first letter went out on January the 17th. And my first letter on January the 17th built an argument that made it very clear that academies have totally transformed education in England over the last decade and a half. That England has risen massively in the international tables, on the Pearls in terms of reading, on the PISA in terms of maths. We've moved from 25th or 27th to 7th and so on. It's unbelievable. We get international visitors, not just at Michaela, but across the country, who come to visit England to see why it is we've managed to achieve these things over the last decade and a half. And that has to do with academies doing so well. She didn't used to mention them. Then after my letter, she has now had to kind of backtrack and say, well, actually, I do like academies, precisely because when anybody looks at any of the evidence, it's clear that academies have made a huge difference for the positive in the country. And so she's going around now saying that she loves academies. And then I looked at her voting record, and it demonstrates that she has always voted against academies and any kind of academy reform that went through over the last decade and a half. And that matches with my own experience with her, that every time she spoke about academies, you could see her sort of twist, and she doesn't like them. So when she's saying she likes them, it's not true. And that's part of what we do as in the public. We ought to be holding our politicians to account if we think that what they're saying simply isn't true. And even if you don't want to believe my account of it, just look at her voting record. It's there in black and white.
On the issue of academies, there are those out there. Obviously, there are those out there who are very pro academies. There's also others who are certainly not happy with the academy system. Mm-hmm. Is the evidence, like when you say that the academy system is performing extremely well and has led the way and that sort of thing, what evidence do we have on that? So for
international evidence. the way in which over the decade and a half we've moved from 25th or 27th or something like that to 7th in terms of reading on the PISA, the Pearls. We are actually rated the best in terms of reading across the Western world. Before, so 15 years ago, 20% of children were functionally illiterate and 22% were functionally innumerate. So things have improved massively. These are just facts. They're things Bridget Philipson herself would not deny, which is why she's now had to come out and say she's in favor of academies.
Could that though be more to do with the enhanced professionalization of the profession since, you know, the 1990s, for example, since the early 2000s, in terms of, you know,
No. The rise has happened in the last decade and a half over when schools were academized. I mean, that is. I mean, what I'm saying here isn't particularly controversial. This is pretty much accepted.
No, I'm digging into it in terms of, I'm just. It would be
accepted by Bridget Philipson as well, which is why she's now. My point is simply that she's not telling the truth. She recognized. She's saying, I recognize academies are really good, and what she's doing is she's saying out loud, I love academies. She's always voted against academies, and so she's quietly taking away the freedoms that academies have to make them more like normal schools, while at the same time saying she loves academies. And what I say in my letter is, why not be honest? So at least the people who you're talking about who are against academies, I don't have a problem with them. I might disagree with them about the academy point, but at least they are honest. They're saying, we don't like academies. This is why we don't like them. We think we should go back to the old way of having schools be local authority schools. And I disagree with them, but at least they're being straightforward and honest. That is not the case with Bridget Philipson.
Okay. I mean, one of the things that I read was, and again, this could be incorrect, but between 2018 and 2023, 72% of council maintained schools maintain their Ofsted outstanding rating compared with 60% of academies. And obviously a lot of those ratings will be linked to student outcomes. So I don't know.
You know that I don't really believe in Ofsted. I think it's
I
do, however, believe in international league tables. International league tables, when you're moving from 27th to 7th, is huge. When you're suddenly top of the charts when it comes to reading in the Western world, that's huge. I mean, internationally, we need to compare. I'm sort of not interested in Ofsted, really. I never am. I mean, yes, you know, we're outstanding, la-di-da, but you don't see me going around saying, oh, we're Ofsted outstanding. What I talk about is how our results are and what our kids are like as people, and I invite people in to see the school, because that's when you really see how remarkable Michaela is.
So on sticking on academies a little bit, so they obviously, the main sort of criticism, some of the criticisms around academies linked, say, for example, to financial mismanagement or, you know, the business sort of element to them. And there's been some recent reporting around academy CEO pay, for example, being, you know, I think one particular CEO's salary tipped over 500,000. And many are paid, you know, a lot of money within that academy system because there's a lot more freedom. I mean, do you understand why that might irk sort of people within some people within the profession, teachers, I don't know, people in schools, to say that, you know, they're huge salaries compared to what the average teacher would get paid, or even in many cases a head teacher would get paid?
I agree. I agree with them. I think that's right.
I
don't think these academy CEOs should be paid over £500,000. I mean, I don't agree with that. I think that's right, and that's the sort of thing that I'm not saying academies are perfect. I'm just saying that they have made schooling better in Britain. Now, look, I agree. I don't think some of those CEOs should be paid as much as they are, but it is a small number of people. Having said that, I agree that shouldn't be the case. But that's not going to make me then say, let's throw academies out the window, because academies bring along so much accountability, responsibility, and freedom that I think really benefit our children. But I would be critical of them in various ways. Sure, I mean, I agree with you on that.
One of the criticisms that I've seen fired at you many times over the last, you know, I've known you for a while. I've seen this fired at you, many times over the years, is that Michaela is selective. So I've seen, and not just Michaela, actually, I've seen it fired at sort of a lot of other academies, actually, and free schools. Can you outline to me what exactly Michaela does when it comes to the selection of students? For somebody perhaps who's watching this who is not in teaching or in education, can you give us an idea on the process you follow and the policy you have when it comes to who gets into the school?
Yeah, well, we're not in charge of who gets in. It's the council. And we are one school amongst many other schools. People apply to the council and they put down 6 choices. A number of the kids who end up here have not chosen us first or second. Some of them have chosen us 4th, 5th, or 6th. The number of children who come here did not want to come to Michaela. That is because if you choose the school 6th or if you choose the school 1st, you have just as much chance of getting in. The reason for that is that we do not do distance. We do a lottery. So if you do want to rig, there are ways of rigging your intake, and that one way is to do distance. If you do distance and you're a good school, the more middle-class families move into the area and the prices go up in the real estate, and then you get your child into that school. We have deliberately not done distance because we want to give equal chance to any poor family who wants to be able to come. And so it's the council that pulls the names out of a hat. Well, they don't pull them out of a hat anymore. They use a computer program, and then they send the kids to us. Now, obviously, we have lots of siblings. That we have nothing to do with the intake. So, and they are just normal kids from around the Wembley. We're just like any other school, and we are in the inner city. We have all those same challenging parents. I have a glass put up in the reception area. It used to be open because the parents would leap over the counter and steal the phones of the office staff. And I've had to call the police at times and so on. We do have a normal intake of inner city kids, but we do things very differently. And so what I don't understand, these people who say, well, they're obviously selective. First of all, if you compare us to truly selective schools that really are, the grammar schools around the corner, or the private schools in Harrow, there's Harrow Boys, or UCS down at Finchley Road, you compare us to them, our behavior is better than the private schools. Our behavior is better than the grammar schools. And those schools are genuinely selective. So, saying we're selective doesn't explain anything, because even if we were selective, the other selective schools, well, we're better than them in terms of behavior. So what I think people should do is perhaps be honest enough and interested enough to think, well, I wonder why do they get such great grades? And why do they have such great behavior? And why are the children happy there? And why, it's odd, because in the most selective schools, you do not find children as happy or as engaged with their learning as they are here. So obviously what we're doing differently must be having some kind of impact. And of course, we get over 800 visitors a year, and there are lots of people who therefore are interested in what we're doing. I just say it's a bit sad, really, if there are others who just want to keep saying, oh, they're obviously selective, and that's their way of just rejecting any kind of curiosity around what we do and why it works.
On curriculum, right? Because that's obviously with academies that allow much more freedom.
Yep.
When it comes to the curriculum offering. Again, another sort of criticism that I've seen leveled at some academies, some schools is, the curriculum is made up in a certain way, maybe made more narrow, maybe the selection of subjects is tailored towards getting better exam results and a better progress 8 score, whatever it is. By doing less subjects, the students could do better in an exam, for example. How do you respond to those sort of concerns? Because that's a big one from the bill, is them basically saying, we want everybody to follow the national curriculum. We want things to be more uniform.
Yeah, I don't know why people think. I mean, I don't mind. You can do whatever you want in your school. Why not let us do what we want to do in our school for our intake? So we get lots of inner city kids who struggle with reading and who struggle with maths. So why wouldn't we want to give them more English and maths? I don't understand this idea that other schools say it's not fair. They give them more English and maths. Well, why don't you give them more English and maths? I just don't get it. Obviously, if you have kids who struggle with English and maths, you should give them more exposure to English and maths. Why wouldn't you? Why do we want to tie our hands behind our backs and say, no, we definitely shouldn't. We definitely want children to leave school functionally illiterate and functionally innumerate. So we're going to prevent them from having extra English and maths. I don't get that. I mean, I don't get it. We offer subjects that we think will put our kids in a good position later to be able to compete with the children who go to Eton and so on, and we're, to get them into the best universities and make the most of their lives. Why wouldn't we do that? I don't understand this idea that we should offer them things that will make sure that they don't do well. I mean, what?
I suppose those critics would argue that those students are being prevented from following pathways into things like the arts or whatever it is, right? Rather than those more traditional pathways. So,
well, we do art and music. Yeah. It's true that we don't do design and technology, but it's my opinion that if you want to study that sort of thing, you should do it at 16. I don't think that's my own opinion. I don't think that we should be doing it at secondary school. I think secondary school is about making sure children. What's that?
Out of interest, why on that, on D&T?
Yeah, because I think secondary school is about making sure that they secure the basics: English, maths, science. They can have a language. You've got religion, geography, history. These are all writing subjects to make sure that they are able to write and do that well. I don't have a problem with DT. I just think it should happen at 16. That's all. There are others. I mean, so we just don't even have any DT facilities here. We don't have the space here to do that. But, if other schools want to do it, I have no problem. And that's the point. Different schools for different strokes for different folks. Why it is we should force all families to have exactly the same thing when it's not necessarily right for each intake. It's also not necessarily, so people will say to me, why don't you teach Latin? Well, I'd find it very difficult to hire a Latin teacher. Why don't you teach computer studies? I find it very difficult to find a computer studies teacher. I mean, the challenges that each school has in different parts of the country are different. So
on music, just on the music and art thing, because I genuinely don't know this, so you can tell me the answer.
Yeah.
On your timetable,
yeah.
What? Because you said they have extra maths and English. So what on an, let's say I'm a year 8 student and Key Stage 3, let's just say 7, 8, or 9. How many, English, maths versus say art, music lessons do I tend to have on a timetable?
Well, they would just have one music and one art, but and depending on what set they're in, they might get 5 English or maths, coming up to 6 or 7, depending. It depends. And if they need intervention, we might be giving them more of that when they're younger. There are kids who genuinely can't read very well when they arrive, so we're giving them more. The fact is, and I say this unapologetically, I do think that literacy and numeracy are more important than other subjects. Now, look, I understand not everybody agrees with that, and they might feel that it's better to teach D&T to 11 and 12 and 13-year-olds than it is to teach them literacy. I think the point of secondary school is to make sure that children end up with the basics. And then after that, they can go off and do any variety of things. And we have lots of our kids, they go off to various colleges, and they do a whole variety of different subjects, including, D&T in a variety of forms. I mean, I'm not against that.
Is that all students who come in do that diet? Is that, or is that sort of like an intervention thing, or is that just that's the way sort of thing?
Yeah, no, they would all do that. I mean, we are a small school, and obviously we're trying to make things work financially. And, you have to make decisions according to what you've got. And so, we tend to try and keep things quite uniform in various places because it's just easier to manage timetable wise and financially. I mean, financially, schools, it's not easy.
You can understand the critics are going to say, if you gave me, Tom, 7 lessons of maths,
Yeah.
and say a 40-minute session of music a week, that whatever, there's a much higher chance that I'm going to do better in an exam at maths or English. However, if I say, for example, I had 3 or 4, then I had 3 or 4 music or art, because and I was good at one of those things, and then I did that over a 5-year period.
Yeah.
Am I sort of limiting my potential? Because then by the time I'm 16, I'm going, I've missed out on however many years of music and art. Yeah, I'm going to get a good exam result in maths and English, but my development of my talent, if you like, hasn't sort of come. Or I guess the flip side might be, okay, I can do that at home. I don't know how you would sort of.
Well, I don't know what you mean by doing it at home. I mean, most schools that I've always known have 1 music and 1 art, but maybe there are schools that do 3 or 4. And you know what? Good luck to them if that's what they want to do and that's what their families are doing. I would just stress that I think it is a duty of ours to make sure that all of our children can read and write and are numerate. I don't think that art is more important than being able to read and write well enough to be able to get a decent GCSE at English and maths. When you say people will criticize us for doing well at English and maths because we organize our timetable in such a way so that children will do well at English and maths, I don't understand why everyone isn't doing that. Why wouldn't you want to organize your timetable in such a way so the children will do better? Now, I have to say, it's not just that we teach them lots of English and maths, that they do well at English and maths. It's also a whole variety of things that we do. But if you think it's just about the time, well, please, all of the teachers who are listening to this, get your kids doing more English and maths just like we do, and then you'll get better results at them. And I think that's great for your kids because they're going to be more literate and they're going to be more numerate and they're going to have better lives as a result. Yeah.
Last question, Catherine, because I know we're running out of time and you need to go. One of the, again, coming back to the academies thing, because this was a key part of your open letter, right?
Yeah.
Was the academies thing. A big part of it, big issues in the SEND system at the moment. Now, I wondered what your thoughts were on this, because I've seen commentary online where a couple of teachers actually, one was Adam Box. I've seen some others say the same thing. That there is an issue with overdiagnosis of SEND. I wondered what you thought on that element, and also when it comes to SEND and sort of disability in schools, and how there is criticism again there of academies saying they don't cater for that because they're more rigid and they're more strict, and it's difficult for particular students to be able to adapt to particular environments.
Okay, so let me say this quickly because I'm just noticing the time. So our SEND children, those are precisely the children who really, really thrive in this environment. Our 2 quite severely autistic children who will jump on one spot in the yard all lunch hour, they love it here. So do all of our SEND kids here, because the less disruption there is, the more consistency there is between the lessons, the more routines that there are, the better SEND kids do. And so I just don't agree with the fact that SEND kids can't cope with this. In fact, I think they thrive in it. It's quite the opposite. They do better here than they do elsewhere. Because
SEND overdiagnosis? Do you...
Oh, yeah, I do agree that there is a SEND diagnosis, and that's just something that's happening across the country, across the Western world, I think. And it's something that we need to think about. But I also think that there are problems that are caused by screens. I talk quite a lot about screen use and how terrible that is for children. It's one of the things that we actively dissuade our kids from doing, both in the school and at home, which again has huge impact on their exam results. There are just so many things that we do that help the kids with their exam results. But I think people should just don't worry about our exam results. Who cares? Don't get distracted by that. Come and visit us, look at the kids, see how happy they are and how nice and polite they are, and then think, well, how are they doing that? Be curious enough and maybe humble enough to just ask the question. The only reason why our school is as good as it is because I've been around many, many schools, as have my staff. We've taken ideas from various schools and we've implemented them here. just be open-minded enough to maybe ask the question, gosh, what are they doing? You know, well, how is it working?
Katharine, thank you so much for your time
All right.
this evening. As always an absolute pleasure to talk to you. So
All
thanks
right,
very much and have a brilliant evening.
You too. Take care.
Cheers.
Bye.
That was Katharine Birbalsingh, Teachers Talk Radio. It's always interesting. So yeah, if you've got any comments or anything you want to sort of say and follow up, then please tweet us at TT Radio Official. Get involved in the conversation there, or just DM us, you know, whatever. We'll be back actually in about 2.5 hours with Brent and Adam on Education Tonight. So if you want more TTR stuff, then watch Brent and Adam live at 8 p.m. UK time tonight. Thanks very much to everybody who has tuned into that live. It'll be available to listen back to as a podcast as well on TTR. So until next time, have a good evening.
Outstanding, a world-class vision, a world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused.